when every day is like Halloween. Their looks are vile, their skin is green. They're good boys, gone bad. They're the most fun that
Hey
you're
guys,
ever gonna
Joe
have.
Perugino, day 26 out of 100. 26 days of making comics out of 100. I spent today, I was doing, not every day I could write, not every day I could draw on the comic, but I do spend time on the comic either way, because it's something I'm always thinking about. And right now I want to talk about the whole writing process. This is the first time I've ever written anything of this length, of this magnitude, or whatever. And I'm seeing it as a journey. It's like a very creepy, scary journey to me, because when you think about it, you're starting at one point, and you know where you want to go, but it's the getting there that's going to get you, that's the hard part. Like I wrote the first story, and I know how I wanted the first story to end. I started the second story, but now the second story being in the middle, I wasn't sure how it would end. But I found it. I found the ending that I was happy with, and we got there. The next story, the third story now, started off with a bang. And again, I'm not sure how to end this one, because I do want to have, I'm going back and forth, but I do want to have four parts to the story. I know what the ending of the fourth story is, and I know what's going to happen in the fourth story, but now it's the third story that is a little daunting, it's the path that I'm a little concerned about. How we get there, how we wind up through the path. Being an artist and talking to fellow artists like you guys, it's like a blank canvas. Obviously, you start off with a blank canvas, and you don't know what your end piece is going to look like until you're done with the piece. And writing to me is a lot like that. You're starting off, but and you wind your way through there. But it's different from drawing, because a drawing, you do a sketch and you build up from the sketch. And I suppose you could do that with a story as far as an outline goes, but to me, it's a different animal, in the sense of building layers upon layers upon layers off of that original sketch. Again, I'm not a writer. This is like my first real big thing into writing. So it's a tough journey, but it happens, which is cool. I mean, the first story got written, the second story got written, the third story is being written, and I noticed one thing about myself is I'm doing more drawing now of the second story, and I think I'm doing that to avoid writing the third story, maybe. I don't know. But I know it has to be done, and I feel a lot more comfortable with the entire story written before I start illustrating, so I might switch gears and go back to writing. I just feel like I get more progress done when I draw. The writing doesn't seem, it's a lot more work, but it doesn't seem like I'm getting stuff done, because I'm not seeing any results, like as far as the characters and stuff. I don't know, I guess it's just my mindset, the way I'm thinking. But I did spend a lot of time thinking about the actual story, how I'm going to get from where I am to the end of the third book, and then from the third book beyond. I just want to get like this whole first four stories done, because then I feel like that would be the introduction to whatever's to come after that. Because there is a whole world with the zombies that are going to take place after this story. But the story is just the initial introduction of the characters, introduction of the story, what's going to happen, what happens in this new world of theirs, what dangers there are. And then, I'm setting it up now. The one thing about the third story that I know I want to do is set it up so that there could be all these other characters, all these other creatures, all these other challenges that they're going to have to deal with once the big reveal comes in the fourth story. The third story, I want you to see all these strange new characters and creatures, but I don't want to give away where they're from until the fourth story. So that's where I think the challenge is. I think I want to end the third story. I'm just talking out loud. This is the first time these words are actually coming out, and you get to hear them for the first time because I'm actually just brainstorming here. But I think I want to end the third story with introducing the main villain. And then, yeah, that's what I want to do. I want to have the main villain come at the end of the third story, and then be the fourth story all about the final epic boss battle between the Zombs and Zero. Well, you know, it's going to be this Zero person. But the big reveal will come. Should it come at the end of the third story? And then just, yeah, I guess it would come at the end of the third story. So, yeah, I mean, that would make sense. And then once the big reveal comes, the fourth story will be the whole what is it called? You know, the end result, the reconciliate. No, what's the word I'm thinking of? Anyway, that it'll be the whole resolve of the story. Will be the fourth book, the climax, the ending, whatever. But again, then I want to leave it open because the third book and fourth book are going to introduce all these characters, and by the end of the third book, you'll find out where these characters come from, and then the fourth story will be the climax of, well, it's not going to be a climax so much as a final, not a final either, but a battle between Zero and the Zombs, which will then set up the entire series after that. That's what the whole plan. That's what I'm trying to do. That's what I want to do. Is this first four stories going to be the introduction that will lead into a series of other stories, and then once you'll see where I'm going. I mean, the first book is the introduction of the Zombs. The second book is their bonding with what little humans there are left and figuring out what's going on. The third book will be the big reveal. The fourth book will be the battle between good and evil, the Zombs and Zero. And but that'll set up the string of what's to come after that. That's what I want to do. Because once you see how all these creatures are released into the world and why they're in the world and what their place is, it'll make a lot more sense. It'll be then the stories that I could come up with after. They could be one shots of all these different stories, and it'll be very cool. Kind of like I'm not giving anything away by saying this, but it's going to be kind of like the Zombs meet X-Files or something like that. But it's not going to be aliens. I can tell you, I can promise you right now, there are no aliens in the story. I mean, that's not to say that there could be in the future. I don't know. But as of right now, the first four stories I have set up, there's no aliens. No. So, but you know, I'm not going to give anything else away. I think I've talked enough. But you know, this in itself was very productive. I'm going to count this as my 10. What is this? Like 10 minutes or so of talking, going into my half hour of today. Only because, again, like I said, it's not always going to be about like, oh, I wrote this today or I drew this today. I need to really work out this story in my head, and I'm not a writer. And the whole purpose of me doing these videos was to do the 100 days of comics, but to also work out the story, because I need that more than anything else. I want the story to be as good as possible. I have a particular style with my artwork. I'm comfortable with it. I'm happy with it, and I think it's pretty decent. So I want the story to match that. I want the story to be just as good, if not better, so they could go hand in hand together. Because I think, to me, that's important. It's not just the artwork that's going to do it. It's going to make the Zombs as big as they're supposed to be. It's going to be the story. And I have a pretty good story. I'm very confident with the story. So I just want to make sure that comes across, and I do it just as well as I could do the writing. That's what I'm saying. And again, I don't write. I never really written before, and especially in a